Reverend R. Callies. Welcome to the Second to None podcast, where we shine a light on the stories, the people, and the faith that make our communities second to none. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Podbean, because these stories of legacy, leadership, and purpose deserve to be heard and shared.
For one of the largest MLK marches in the country.
Reverend Callies kind of started marching before marching, what people even knew what marching was. He is a founder and a pioneer that we consider him, and we don't allow him to be left out of the conversation of the MLK March.
Known as an East Side community activist, he fought for traffic lights, better drainage, and the construction of the Freedom Bridge on New Braunfels Avenue to make sure that kids could walk to school safely.
He saw that the condition of the African American could be better. So he was one of those people who advocated for better conditions.
Today, Callies is also still remembered as an influential pastor and middle school history and woodshop teacher.
That made the kids all feel like he was their dad, or he was their uncle, or he was making sure he looked out for us. So he would preach to us when we would get in trouble, so that was the good side of him too.
Callies passed in 2011. A stretch of Rice Road bears his name, and the city now honors activists of today with the Reverend Callies Courage Award.
I would just like to say that this is one of the aspects of Dr. Martin Luther King, dreams becoming a reality. Certainly, Dr. King was interested in the decency of labor for all people, a fair wage for all people, decency for mankind as reflected in labor.
Reverend R. Callies. Welcome to the Second to None podcast, where we shine a light on the stories, the people, and the faith that make our communities second to none. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Podbean, because these stories of legacy, leadership, and purpose deserve to be heard and shared. Today, we're taking it back to the east side of San Antonio, back to a time before the cameras, before the crowds, when one man, a pastor named Reverend R. Callies, had a vision of unity and faith in action. It started with just a few footsteps, a few voices, and one unshakable belief that Dr. King's dream didn't belong to history books, but to the people, to our streets, our churches, and our children. Reverend Callies didn't just talk about change. He walked it, he prayed it, he organized it, and he built a movement that still lives in San Antonio today. So as we honor the legacy of Dr. King, we also celebrate the man who made sure that dream marched through our city year after year. This is more than a story about a march. It's a story about faith, leadership, and legacy. This is the story of Reverend R. Callies, and how his vision, along with the support of other pastors, helped birth the largest Martin Luther King Jr. March in America, right here in San Antonio. In San Antonio, every January, tens of thousands gather to march in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But behind this powerful tradition is a story that began decades ago, a story of faith, courage, and community leadership. This is the story of Reverend R. Callies and how his vision, along with the support of other pastors, helped birth the largest Martin Luther King Jr. March in the nation, right here in San Antonio. Long before the cameras and the crowds, before the city permits and media coverage, there was a pastor with a mission. In the 1970s, Reverend R. Callies, then pastor of First Gazemi Baptist Church, also known as Christian Fellowship Baptist Church, began organizing small memorial processions to honor Dr. King's birthday. He believed that remembrance should not be confined to sermons or songs, but should move the community into action. On January 15, 1978, Reverend Callies led one of these earliest processions. Standing at Alamo Plaza with the microphone in hand, he urged the people of San Antonio to honor Dr. King not just with words, but with footsteps. Historical photos show him speaking powerfully of justice, unity, and love. Reverend Callies knew something vital, that no single congregation could carry this vision alone. He reached out across denominations, forming bridges with pastors throughout San Antonio's black churches. He connected deeply with Pastor Shelton and his family. Reverend Callies was known in the community as a unifier, a man who brought different people and churches to the same table. Through those alliances came a young leader who would eventually become Pastor Robert Shelton, mentored by both Reverend Callies and Pastor McIntyre. Reverend Callies built a network of young people and organizers who prayed together, planned together, and marched together with their children. Churches like Mount Zion First Baptist, Antioch Missionary Baptist, Second Baptist, Greater Faith, Childress Memorial Church of God in Christ, Lincoln Park Temple Pentecostal, and many others across the East Side eventually became the backbone of the movement. They provided buses, volunteers, meeting halls, and spiritual covering for what would become the San Antonio MLK March. But in those early days, planning a march wasn't simple. There were questions of safety, logistics, funding, and city approval. But Reverend Callies had always been an incubator for both faith and freedom. As Frederick Douglass once said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." And Reverend Callies understood that such a demand must be organized, disciplined, prayerful, and public. Through late-night meetings and endless phone calls, Reverend Callies turned a dream into a citywide and eventually a nationwide event. By 1987, the city of San Antonio officially sponsored its first MLK Freedom March, built upon the foundation Reverend Callies and his coalition laid years before. That torch was carried forward by Reverend Callies' family, church organizations, and countless others who kept the spirit of unity alive, mentoring new leaders and preserving the message of Dr. King. Behind the banners and speeches, it was Reverend Callies who gave the movement its heartbeat. It was mothers fixing lunches for volunteers. It was Reverend Callies driving a red pickup truck, and later a van, to pick up the youth. It was protest songs at the Capitol, "Hey, hey, what do you say? We want King Holiday," that became freedom songs echoing through the streets. Reverend Callies dared to believe that faith and justice could walk hand in hand. He continued the work for decades, keeping the fire of unity burning and passing that spirit to the next generation. In one powerful image of continuity, Pastor Robert Shelton's daughters, along with other youth from San Antonio, stood at the Texas Capitol beside Reverend Callies during those early protests, keeping Dr. King's dream alive. Kendra, one of the daughters of Pastor Robert Shelton, remembers those early days not as distant history, but as lived experience. She stood alongside Reverend R. Callies during those pivotal trips to Austin with her sisters, where she says it was just her sisters, and other young people with Reverend Callies who gathered to press state officials to recognition and give the late Martin Luther King a holiday nationwide. For her, those moments weren't just about politics. They were about purpose. She watched Reverend Callies pray before meetings, speak truth to power, and stand with quiet dignity as he demanded that the legacy of Dr. King be honored not only in Texas with a holiday, but nationwide. That spirit of unity didn't end there. In a remarkable connection of history and family, Kendra later married James, the grandson of Reverend Scruggs, who served under Bishop Iglehart. Their marriage symbolized more than family. It's living proof that the heritage born in those marches continues to breathe life in San Antonio. Today, that march is one of the largest Martin Luther King Jr. commemorations in the United States. Each year, more than 200,000 people walk from MLK Park down Martin Luther King Drive to Pittman Sullivan Park. But in the beginning, the route ran down New Braunfels Street to the Martin Luther King statue, a humble yet powerful image of unity. And it all began with a pastor, a prayer, a group of youth, and a handful of churches united by faith. Reverend Callies' legacy still lives on. The city of San Antonio even established the Reverend R. Callies Courage Award, a lasting tribute to his vision and service. Today, when we march through San Antonio's east side, we walk in their footsteps. The footsteps of Reverend R. Callies, Pastor McIntyre, Pastor Robert Shelton, and countless believers who refuse to let the dream die. The churches they built still stand. The families they led still worship. And the unity they forged still shapes our culture and our community. So as you take your next step in that march, remember this. Faith isn't just what we say on Sunday. It's what we live out every day. In the streets, in our communities, and in the pursuit of justice. This is the legacy and dream of Reverend R. Callies, the man who turned faith into a movement, and a movement into history. This is living proof that an idea can live forever. Keep marching. Keep the dream alive in San Antonio and across the world.